So, stock market was positive yesterday, 0.88%, 33,196 points is where we close. So far this month of October, which is going to be ending in a couple of days. In fact, October ends tomorrow.
Tomorrow,
Yeah,
yes.
the market has been positive since. So we've got good results that were pushed by the banking sector. I believe the Stanbic did pretty well. GTB, in fact, Stanbic, GTB, and Zenith are the only three banks that have a return on equity that's above the average for the banking sector, which is about 13%. Those are the only three banks that are in excess. So yesterday they did pretty well. But as far as our top gainer was Lasako, top loser was Unity Bank. We're still at about 362 naira to the dollar. So we moved from equities over to money market. Bumi, we're having an interesting conversation downstairs about when you came, where rates were. Please tell us what's happening.
Okay, so should I start from there or should I start from...
Start from there. Let's give the background. We haven't been here. We haven't touched this in a while. Let's go ahead.
Okay, so the last time I came, I said the highest...
We haven't been here. We haven't touched this in a while. Let's go ahead.
Okay, so the last time I came, I said the highest rate you could get in if you're investing in T-bills was 13.5%.
Yes.
You know, the very week I said it, so I came in on Tuesday. On Thursday, CBN moved the clearing rate from 13.5 to 14%.
So you jinxed the rate. You moved the rate up.
But this hike is a long time coming. You know,
Right,
we've said it over and over again that we're expecting a hike, especially as a consequence of things that are going on domestically and internationally.
Right.
You know, the US Feds have increased their rates.
Yes.
Emerging markets followed suit. We're not even emerging markets, we're actually frontier market, which is
Right.
lower grade.
Right,
You know,
right.
so we should have done this a while ago, if not for anything else, to stem the tide of the exodus
Because
foreign investors.
they gave warnings.
Yes.
They have guidance. They were telling people that look, the rates are going to go up.
You know, so
right.
this is like late, but perhaps it might be enticing enough to bring some of them back. Then internally, inflation has been on an upward trend.
That's correct.
So you want to stem inflation by mopping up disposable income of individuals.
Correct.
You know, because if you increase rates, you force them to save as an invest. So
Right.
if the disposable income in their hands is fewer, they will tend not to buy as much. And usually that would work if the reason for the inflation is a demand pull. So less money chasing the available goods
right.
will stem inflation. Then you also want to look at our reserves. CBN's concern is stability in the FX in our exchange
reserves
rate.
have been dropping.
Exactly, and our reserves. So with this, perhaps we might stop the tide of exodus by the foreign investors, and then maybe get some to come back, so that our foreign reserves become robust again like they were before.
Right.
And I mean, the oil prices are pretty much on the high side, so this should be supportive enough for any foreign investors looking at
thank
Nigeria, except for the
President Trump for that, for all this wahala that he's
except for
causing
the risk
overseas.
of the elections, of
Correct.
course. But, I mean,
Okay. So now for this week though, right, as you've said, so rates are going up.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the truth is that I think if you are looking to invest, 14.5 might be a good entry point for you.
14.5% on
might not,
T-bills,
yeah. So if you have, say, 1 million naira, for instance, you might not invest the whole 1 million naira right now.
Okay.
You might do maybe a third, because our outlook is that rates for T-bills might actually reach 15%. That's my
Before the end of the year.
Before the end of the year. That's
Okay.
that's my opinion. You know, so you can invest some now and then wait and see if yields go as high as we expect them to go. But if you are trading, which is different,
Okay.
I would say hold on, be a little bit patient and wait to see the increase in rates. Why? Because you know, for securities, the strategy is to buy high, sell low.
Okay.
So you want to sell, if you're that savvy, short sell your instruments now where the levels are now, and then buy later, because your view is that interest rates will go up.
Okay.
You know, so, and that is what has happened in the securities market
space, yeah.
actually. Throughout last week, the bonds market and the T-bills market were pretty bearish. Why? Because most traders were apathetic to buying instruments because they had seen that from CBN standpoint they were going to continue to increase rates. So, for instance, I bought a security close to a year last week at 14%.
Okay.
Then the following week, the same security, at least in the same tenor range, is now at 14.5. You know, so if I'm holding a position, I'm already out of money.
Right.
Because that same maturity, at least close to the one I'm talking about now, is trading at 14.5. Meanwhile, I bought it at 14.
Right.
So people in that position probably were selling off some of their securities that were in the loss position.
Okay.
And then some of them were just creating liquidity to enter the market again when yields go higher.
Okay.
You know, so most people were like, we're not buying, rather we would sell.
Okay.
Or as in if you were not doing either of the two things that I described now, you're short selling.
Right.
As in, I'm selling what I don't have now to buy in future.
Right. If the
Because
rates go
if
up.
the rates go up, which is
So, but
pretty
again,
likely.
there's the just to remind people, you need at least 50 million, right? If you're going to get
Yeah.
from the primary market,
From the primary market, you
right?
need at least 50 million. So this
But-
is for traders. This is and that's for the auction.
Right.
If you're trading in the interbank, you need 250 million.
250.
250
Okay.
million.
Well,
So-
but okay, but you can buy, on the secondary end from,
From
your
your
bank,
banks, yes,
right?
and some asset management companies.
But will the rates be, if I'm going to, like, I don't have, I'm speaking for Rotus, I do not have 50 million. So,
neither do I.
Valentine, do you have 50 million?
I do. I just haven't collected.
You haven't
it.
collected it yet. So for those of us that don't have 50 million, right? We go to the bank, say I want to buy T-bills. Are we going to be able to get it at that 14.5 rates? Is that
No, you
I
possibly
didn't think so.
won't. You know why? Because the bank is using their liquidity to buy it
Right.
and then sell to you.
So they've already bought at.
Exactly, they've used their liquidity to buy at
that
the- at that
14.5%.
14.5%, and I mean the bank is in the business of
So
making
they
money.
have to make-
So they will take a spread and then sell to you a
At
little bit
lower
lower
than,
than
so maybe 14%.
maybe 14.
Okay, good stuff. Anything is that, or are we still going on
Okay,
bonds
I forgot to mention that okay, OBB and overnight rates
Yeah.
reached a high of 28 last week and then tapered down in following days. Because you know OBB and overnight rates move in tandem with the volume of liquidity
Yeah,
available.
so when
for
liquidity is lower,
exactly.
they're higher.
So we opened at 109 billion and then closed at over 160. So at the peak of the market, that was Monday when we were funding for the FX auction, rates reached 28. But after Monday, there was not a significant amount of demand pressure for funds, so things tapered down,
Okay.
and then inflow started coming in. There was Omu maturity. There was
the
Paris-
FAC coming.
FAC is expected this week.
Okay, this week.
So
Okay.
there's Paris Club refunds. There was one more thing.
There's
Okay,
always
refund
Paris
from
Club.
Yes, Paris Club about 155 came in, and then the refund from the last FX retail auction.
Okay.
So all of that brought in about 700 billion.
And push liquidity up.
Yeah, yes, but CBN of course took
Now mopped
up
it
about
up.
500 billion left, part of which was settlements for Oma maturity, the bond auction, and another retail auction which happened on Friday.
Okay.
Interestingly, for the bond auction, I tweeted it
Yeah,
last week. 115 billion was on offer, but DMO was only able to get about 88 billion. So they offered the 5, 7, and 10-year instruments, but the 5 and 7 year were undersubscribed. But the 10-year, being the longest tenure,
Yeah.
was oversubscribed.
So there was more interest in the 10 years.
Yes, because it's longer one. But the other thing is that it was oversubscribed by over 100%.
Yeah.
But DMO only sold half of that.
That's the debt management office.
Sorry, debt
you know
manage-
how
I'm
we have
sorry,
the
Lagos.
acronyms. Yes, we have
Debt
to learn
management
yes, the
office.
debt management office. All
And
right.
you know why? Because the range of bids was from 12.98 to 16.15,
Okay.
meaning that a significant chunk of the demand believed that interest rate for that particular bond should be at the 16 levels, not 15. And you know the debt management office wants to borrow at the cheapest rate possible.
Yes,
so
that's
they
correct.
only sold to the portion of the demand that was
On that end.
on the shorter end,
Right.
which was 15.32.
So bonds are in that range. T-bills. So rates are general. I mean,
Yes,
yeah.
so
let's see.
bonds so what I'm trying to say is, so the psyche is that bonds should be trading at 16 levels, not 15.
Right.
And T-bills should be trading at 15 levels, not 14, which is where we see the rates to be going towards.
Now, you see, in all this, I remember, maybe this is a separate conversation, but there was the issue of the budget deficits, crowding out the private sector, wanting to reduce costs, refinancing domestic debt to go and borrow overseas.
Yeah.
Are we going back there again if the cost interest rates are going up? Isn't this adding costs to what the government is paying?
You know, there are two authorities we need to look at.
Yeah.
The fiscal authorities,
Yeah.
which would be through the DMO,
Right.
and the Ministry of Finance, and then the monetary authorities, which is CBN.
Right.
So CBN's job is to keep prices stable, keep
Correct.
inflation down.
Correct. That's
keep
their man.
Exchange rate stable. So whatever it takes to achieve that is what they would do.
They don't send anything else.
So they might it's not like they don't care about the rising cost of our debt, but that's they are leaving that. That's not their job. That's the job for the fiscal authorities.
Right.
Their job is to, like I said, keep prices stable. So if inflation is high, how am I going to keep prices stable? I'm going to
Jack up rates. Right.
If I'm trying to attract more FX to increase the volume of my reserves, what am I going to do? Increase rates to make it attractive enough for foreign investors to come in. So these are the things that they will do, despite the fact that they are trying not to crowd out
Private sector.
sector.
Also, they're
But
trying
they
to
must
borrow as
do
well.
that.
Interesting. And Lagos, there is the balance in governance. It's not an easy dance. it's not easy at
It's
all.
an interesting world.
Very, very, very interesting. All right, Valentine, we got
have
messages.
yes.
Okay.
So Daniel is asking the right questions. Daniel says, "Hope Rotus brought bread."
Daniel,
Yeah.
see me after the show.
Okay, alright, you know where we are. So Steven said, "Bro, Rotus, you're talking like the traffic hasn't been there since 1974. Just so you're not here. You're not yet out
Out of vacation mode. Stephen, good point.
Good. I'm glad I called you out for that.
I mean,
Dami says, no one is coming back out until after the elections. As a frontier market, we should attract FPIs before other markets. Please change the CBN governor and the whole MPC.
wow, Dami.
All of them.
Radical stuff there.
I agree with him.
Paul says, I was looking at Stanbic Square third quarter results, and compared to other tier 2 banks, it was really impressive. I'm wondering what the criteria is for putting this bank in tiers, because Stanbic is doing far better than some so-called tier 1 banks. I will need clarification in that criteria.
It's the capital level as far as the tier 1. There's tier 1 and tier 2 capital, so there's a ceiling.
Yeah.
I think what Paul is referring to, their profit after tax was up by like 57%. I said at the top of the show, and I mentioned Stanbic, GTB, and Zenith as far as return on equity, 3 highest performers. I mean, look, buy their stock. It's a good performing bank, and I think it's a South. Let's be honest here. Stanbic is owned by South Africa. So, when you look at the
And they
management,
have their pension, their asset management companies that have been doing
and their
fantastically.
mutual funds.
Yes,
Stanbic has one of
you
the
know.
best performing mutual funds in the country. So there's a whole number of things going into.
In your opinion?
Well, yeah, no, this one is fact.
No,
now.
it's
Oh,
fact.
okay, right, yeah,
Exactly.
but by rankings, I'm just saying, there are good. There are a lot of good mutual fund performance out there, but they are one of the best.
All right, so this one, he continues to ask, as Paul says, also, what's really wrong with Diamond Bank? Is there any hope for dividend in the foreseeable future? Because profitability hasn't been good finally. What's the implication of high PE ratio?
Paul, this is what I was supposed to talk about yesterday when I didn't come in. So Diamond Bank, their stock, they were the best performing stock last week. They jumped 20%, I think, from they closed at $1.44. Also because a lot of investors thought that there was recapitalization coming back. Of course, Diamond has now come out and told the stock exchange and the public, no, we're not being recapitalized, that we're going to look internally. I think a lot of their problems have to do with the fact that management
They're
is
changing
one.
their management.
Yeah, because there were 4 non-executive directors that resigned. People thought that because I think it's Carlyle Group. This is a private equity fund that invests in different companies across sub-Saharan Africa. They invested about 144 million in 2004. That's only worth like 66. The funding has dropped. Diamond lost some money in loans to the oil and gas sector. So, for right now, I would perhaps hold off. Valentine, we're running out of time.
Yes, we are.
Air
out of
traffic
time.
signals. But Paul, we'll get into that some more tomorrow. We're going to talk about a lot of earnings tomorrow. Bunmi, thank you so much for joining us.
You're
Real
welcome.
quick, do we have Bunmi's WhatsApp? Bunmi has a business line. You can send all questions on the money market really quickly. 070-832-84719. I also tweeted it out as well. Sorry, Valentine. Yeah, we're out of time.
That's fine. Thank you. Traffic control. Lagos coming up next at 7:30. We'll go into detailed analysis of our newspaper stories. It's inside of Freshly Pressed 91. Good morning.
Sorry, I know. Everybody